We have our next presenters coming up, and that is Georgia Power's Economic Development Team, initially led by Jeff DeWitt and now by Argrieve Blanchard. They've modernized their site selection platform and transitioned from GeoCortex Essentials to Vertigo Studio. The new tool enables users to search commercial and industrial properties across Georgia, customize criteria, generate reports, and share insight with stakeholders, enhancing usability, performance, decision making. Jeff, a retired GIS administrator with 40 years experience, and Henri, a GIS administrator with a decade of cross-functional expertise, leveraged their skills in ArcGIS, Vertigo Studio, and data management to deliver this upgrade. Their work reflects a commitment to innovation, collaboration, and ensuring site selection and economic development professionals have fast, reliable access to spatial data for smarter resource allocation. So with that, Jeff, I'm going to make you the presenter.
All right. All right. Thank you, Peter. Hello, everybody. My name is Arnie Blanchard, and I just want to start off to say thank you to the Vertiges team for giving us the opportunity to share our success story about our Site Selector app. And I believe in order for us to give you the full picture, I think it's important for us to explain what we do as economic developers and why the Georgia Power Site Selector tool is so important to us. And to give you a little background story, that Georgia Power has been in the economic development business since for nearly 100 years now, so surprising. And our main mission in economic development is to drive economic growth in Georgia and to make Georgia the number one place to do business. And we also believe in integrating data to tell the story of why Georgia is the best place to grow and the best place for a new company to move to. So we use the Site Selector is the tool that we use in order to display all that. A lot of times, economic development begins with the Site Selector. So it's crucial that we showcase what Georgia has to offer, and it makes it easier for companies that want to locate in Georgia, find the right place for them. So, and when choosing a location, it's not just about the physical site itself. It's also about finding the right community, the workforce, and the workforce to help them build the business. And the Site Selector brings all that information together in one place, so companies have everything that they need in order to make a decision. So, what is the Site Selector? Is this just a map? No, it's much more than that. It's really utilizing what we know about economic development and to make one-stop shop to help everyone make the right decision and making it in one place, whether it's our business partners or our internal folks that trying to help the new company locate into Georgia, help answer all these questions. So it helps us with the Site Selector. The users can we have customized form to make searches and to filter exactly what they need for the time being for that potential prospect. Because when it comes to economic development, we have many different type of prospects. So the type of question they would have, the type of criteria in their needs will fluctuate. So we utilize the Site Selector as a tool in order to help answer those questions. And because it's constantly changing, we also have to evolve with that and change along with it. So this tool allows us to help answer those questions. So we can create detailed reports on the selected properties in order to help answer RFIs and to just make that decision just that much better. And we can also utilize demographics, because demographic reports, in putting that all in one place. And originally the Site Selector was on GeoCortex back in 2018, and it was built on GeoCortex, but we essentially had to migrate to Vertigo Studio app in 2024. And the reason that we had to change it, but also it was a great change for us. It allows us to do everything much better. It allows us to answer these questions much better. So it became an enhanced user experience for everyone, because I know, talking to the project managers, they utilize it all the time, and it's easier for them to use it. So having a platform that's easy to use and easy to explain to the project manager, it's really useful. And the Vertigo Studio app has allowed us to be responsive to them. So it allows us to leverage different APIs, because data is the key, but data by itself is nothing without putting it together and helping answer questions. And it allows us to have a custom app that's flexible, not just like everyone else that's like other economic developers that have something that's not flexible. This platform allows us to be as flexible as we want and create, because we constantly have new ideas and implementing those new ideas into the site selector. So that's the big reason for changes, and I would allow Jeff to move forward for that.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Appreciate the time. As Arnie mentioned, it's a great opportunity to talk to everyone. We're so thankful with all of our partnerships, not only in economic development, but especially with Vertigis. As Arnie mentioned, this process started, I believe it was back in 2018, when we started leveraging the GeoCortex Essentials application for our web viewer, our site selector. Quickly after we did that, the newer Vertigis products were coming out. It started with the workflows, and we quickly started adapting some of the newer platform applications as they became available. So as you guys, probably many of you are already aware of some of the advantages of Vertigis, but for us, the keys were building applications without custom development. I don't like coding. I don't love coding. As most GIS people are very visual, so having everything is kind of what you see, what you get. Development was super helpful with the workflows of the web tools, reporting. And again, kind of really stresses, you hear the same message throughout our presentation. The ability to adapt and tailor solutions specifically to our business is key. As Arnie mentioned, there are several off-the-shelf products that do economic development, specifically for site selection. Many of our other partners in the state use those, and there's advantages, pros and cons with that, but the ability to be able to respond to what our users need without having to wait for a third party to add that to their platform was super key to us. We have a pretty extensive experience in the economic development department at Georgia Power. So there are a lot of skill sets that we wanted to be able to leverage in order to build a unique product. So really the key again with going to the web especially was enhanced intuitive user interface, being able mobile friendly, that's all kind of basic stuff now, but the move from Essentials to web especially was key to give us that increased usability and flexibility to change the layout and make something really user friendly. So that was very important. Arnie already talked a little bit about the search forms, which are very key. That's kind of where everybody starts when we're looking for properties. So very helpful with the workflow forms and how's that keep developing and changing to make that even easier to use. Created many different types of workflows for custom tools and functionality. Essentially, we get different questions, or we hear of different pain points from our users or internal folks, and we're able to use workflows to pretty easily, in many cases, respond to those questions and those pain points and create a custom tool for them. So that's been really, really helpful. Really appreciate the shout out from Lucas on showing us some of our reports, but that has been especially important for us, as that is typically the takeaway for our end users to be able to generate a report and show their interested parties to what they looking for. So that's kind of the key takeaway or the key deliverable that is very important for us. So those reports, very important. I always joke, but when I first saw folks at Vertigis or then GeoCortex or Latitude, I said, you guys had me at reporting. This was even at the very beginning. So the reporting part, again, so key for us. As you guys know who are in this world, having a nice polished output report is not easy to do. But, the reporting aspect has been very, very important for us. And those enhancements that we've made in the last several years have been very impactful. And lastly, obviously, the integration with Esri, with the web maps and different APIs, specifically geo-enrichment APIs to be able to leverage demographic data has been very, very helpful. So I'll highlight some of those, but just in general, those are kind of why we were on the Vertigis, started moving everything to the Vertigis platform. Many of you guys already realize this, but for us, the key again was flexibility, be able to adapt to our users' need and users' overall user experience with the viewer platform. So the last thing, this was a multi-step process when we converted from Essentials over to the Vertigis Studio platform. We started with workflow. We had all the old workflows in the Essentials workflow platform, and eventually started running those over to the newer platform. But this was a multi-step process. So the last thing that we converted was what I call our viewer, or basically what the end user sees, which in this case was Studio Web. So again, hammering that same point, easy to use, intuitive user interface. In this case, we had a customized layout with panel tabs. You kind of see that on the right-hand side. We have a different tab for searches, for demographics, for workforce. The idea is just trying to expose to the user right away so they don't have to kind of hunt around to try to find the information that they need. So the panel with those tabs in it is really, really impactful for us because it's an easy way to organize the data without overwhelming them with too many choices. So that's been really helpful. Been able to use the result details, really do some nice presentation of that. And you can see that in the right-hand side screenshot of that as well. We're able to use some arcade scripting in the web map pop-up to create the different categories to really kind of showcase the data in a nice polished way. And the other nice thing was that is the fields were dynamic with arcade. So what that means is like if there's a feature that does not have a particular data set or particular data attribute, in other words, the data is missing or we don't have it available, that whole data point goes away. So the header and the data itself also is hidden from the user, so you don't end up with a lot of headers with no data on it. So that was a really cool way with going to web by using the web maps and to really create some really nice pop-ups. We also were able to customize the handling the result lists and result tables in web. That's a little bit of a challenge with that, but I think we ended up with a really nice product with that. And then, again, created lots of custom tools with workflow. We had a custom search tool at the top where see the kind of the example up there in the map where it says search for properties. So what that allowed us to do was, in that one search tool, was to be able to search for addresses or properties in the same search, and then be able to kind of handle how those results are handled, either through a feature display as a result detail or through a geocode of an address, and be able to display that differently. So that's just one example. We modified the measure tool a little bit to allow the users to either keep the measure graphics or not, and there's several others in there. But again, the real key with that was be able to create custom function tools that look native to the application, but do something very specific to what our users are looking for. So that's basically the big advantages for us for web. As I mentioned before, really the beginning part of this was to take our existing workflows from the Essentials workflow into the Vertigis platform. A bit of a learning curve for those of you who've been through that already. You go from Visual Basic, I think it was, to now basically JavaScript platform. But I tried a little bit with the old ones and I wasn't very good at it. When I saw the new Vertigis workflow platform, I immediately loved it. This is very, very visually easy to use, kind of connecting the boxes and dots and all that. It's a much better user interface. and way, way, way more powerful in terms of functionality and flexibility. So we have many, I don't even know, honestly, Arniv, maybe you could get a number, maybe 20 to 25 different workflows in our web application. It's a lot, yeah.
That's a lost track.
Yeah, so we have many different custom workflows in there, from a pretty complex startup workflow that tries to parse out what is happening when someone adds some additional URL parameters to trying to figure out if it's on a mobile device and handle those differently. But a pretty complex startup workflow. We have workflows, very complex workflows for that property search form. That search form is dynamic, so we're leveraging a lot of the visibility depending on what type of property type the user picks. So we're able to display one form, but then turn on and off the different form elements depending on what the user picks. So that dynamic functionality and visibility, very, very helpful for us, and especially in the search form. We have a property report workflow that is very complex on the back end as to what is actually done. Many different APIs we leverage in that, from the geo-enrichment API to some Google Maps API to some Mapbox APIs to generate overview maps. All of that is done in the property reports workflow, and it's really, really powerful for us. I haven't found a use yet where we had a solution, or we have an issue or an enhancement request where I haven't been able to use workflow to solve that.
Use the workflow, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been it doesn't do absolutely everything, obviously, but it's been extraordinarily powerful for us, and very easy. Ultimately, once you kind of understand the concepts of it, and it's obviously a bit of a learning curve, but once you understand the concepts of it, it's been very, very powerful. So as I said, that was kind of the first part that we did. We converted the essential workflows over to Workflow, the Verdigest Studio platform. So that's our key component to that. And then obviously the other major component is the reporting. Again, Lucas kind of displayed a little bit of that for you guys earlier. You can see a little bit behind the scenes of the report template over there for one of those. It's the one that you're seeing there, the two-pager, is extraordinarily complex. That took a lot of time to do. I think we leveraged some of the high charts, and maybe someone can correct me wrong if I mention that. Some of the high charts templates, it is using some of the 3 APIs, and we're basically creating that in a workflow, making those API requests, formatting the response, and then submitting that to the report as a JSON object. So all of that demographic data that you see in those reports are basically JSON objects of the geo-enrichment API response. So that's kind of how we got around that and able to leverage some of the APIs. The overview map that you see a screenshot or example of that is using the Mapbox API. So essentially we're sending lat long and I think a name of a property to that Mapbox API to put those individual pinpoints on the map. And then we're able to basically just save that as a map template inside the report. So that's how that works. So we're able to, and also the last one I should mention is the Google Maps API. I don't have an example of that on there, but there's option for users to include like a very simple location map, which again just kind of takes a lat long from the property that is selected and sends that to a Google Maps API request of that lat long in it with some additional parameters to return a little Google Maps with a pin on it. So several different examples there where you see where we're leveraging some APIs to create some really dynamic and very, very important and I think very useful reports. The other key with that is you guys who use APIs, you know that you don't have to warehouse the data. You just leverage your existing vendors to do that. With Esri, I will point out, yes, it does cost credits. We're aware of that as something we monitor. For the larger ones that require a lot of credits, we limit the number of reports that can be generated. But for the majority of the time, it's a pretty small ask. The other things you guys already know in terms of branding, logos, colors, all that, combining spatial and non-spatial data, we did that a lot in those reports and using sub-reports. So for us, the end product, the end deliverable for most of our users was a report. So that's been a huge reason why we started leveraging Vertigis to begin with, and then able to make some really dynamic and very cool reports. So that's a reporting part of it. Then the last step that we did, I did talk about web earlier, so that was kind of the last component of that. So really for us, the main three things from Essentials was the workflows, and then we did the reporting, and then ultimately we ended up with web. And we do have some simple printing map templates in there, but nothing too crazy. So overall, the overall outcome of this whole process was, it was many years, to be honest. It was not just a 6-month project. The web conversion took about a year on and off. Those reports, that took many months back and forth work on that. But at the end of the day, we ended up with a platform, very modern, easy to use. Again, harping on that same theme for us, which was usability, custom interfaces specifically designed for what our economic developers are looking for, to give them the ability to find the data that they're looking for very easily, like those search forms, reports, the flexibility and customization of the user interface. Again, being able to respond to what our users are looking for and make changes very quickly. And the only other thing I'll say with the outcomes is on the back end for us, and I don't know exactly how to say this, but the back end designer application, the web designer, so much easier than the old GeoCortex Essentials. Essentially, is kind of what you see, what you get. Very easy to handle that. The last thing, kind of some of the lessons learned with this. I know Peter was kind of mentioning that on the last presenter. Kind of the big things that we took away was you don't have to convert everything at once. You can kind of piecemeal this, start with your workflows, your reports, your print templates, which is exactly what we did. So we were leveraging the new workflows and reports and print templates all in the old GeoCortex viewer before we actually converted to web. So for us, kind of the last step was converting to web. As you guys probably have already figured out, modifying the old workflows and report templates, you'll likely need to recreate those in the Vertigis Studio. And maybe Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe there's any direct conversion tools with those. So it is a bit of a learning curve with that. But I think some of especially with what Lucas was showing you guys, to get started and how to connect that and build those, it's much easier and it's pretty user friendly. Try to figure that out. The last major thing I'll point about, and maybe if he's on here, he can talk a little bit about that. And I think Tatiana mentioned this as well. The Vertigis Studio Web product uses the Esri Web Map as a data source instead of linking directly to MapSearch. So when you're dealing with your workflows, you have this whole idea now of a Vertigis feature instead of Esri features. That's a bit of a learning curve to how to deal with those and how to work with those. And once you figure it out, it's fairly intuitive, but it is different. So we did have to reconfigure our workflows that we had that we're using in Essentials to kind of migrate them and change them a little bit to work in the Vertigis Studio web platform. So there was some changes and impacts on that. The other thing, major thing we found out was, and I think maybe Tatiana was talking about that, was the map pop-ups especially are now configured in the web map, not in the actual application. So that does impact how the results are displayed in web, in terms of what elements can be displayed, how they're displayed, that kind of thing. So once I figured it out, we were able to work with that. It's a bit of a learning curve to figure that out. But by far, I think the web map is far easier to use and maintain. Adding new data sets is way easier. So once you kind of figure it out, the usability overall is absolutely 100% better advantage. So we did learn some lessons, learned a lot over the last several years, but once you get there, the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do with a new product.
Excellent. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Arniv. great presentation and wonderful application. I do have a quick question about your approach. I mean, I was your account manager through some of this, so I remember lots of what we did together. But your approach is what really inspired me to kind of like. I make a recommendation all the time about the approach that you used with regards to building your print templates, your workflows, your reports, like before doing the website, because the website was really complex and a lot of stakeholders have different ideas. And sometimes you get dragged into, things that you may not want to, but at least you had your reports, workflows, and other things done early before you went into web. Can you elaborate on that approach?
Yeah. So when the workflows came out, I was an early adopter of that right away. I saw the better usability with the workflows. And once Essentials was able to use the newer Vertigo Studio products, the reporting and the printing and the workflows, without having to convert to web, that was key for us. We started leveraging that right away. And then the main reason why we waited to go to web was to get a lot of the feature parity. Cam had published that whole document that we watched pretty intently. There were some key features for us, like storing project information, some of how to handling different features, several key things that we were kind of waiting for. Once we were able to get that, it's kind of when we started pursuing that development. But yeah, it was very much piecemeal. A lot of that was just driven by the product release schedule, and then once we saw some of those enhancements that we were looking for is when we started pursuing that development. But yeah, the whole idea is like you can do it in piecemeal. You don't have to do it all at once.
And I guess also you're able to like test out your new report on people who are already familiar with the old interface. And that, I guess, maybe speeds things up a little bit to make them part of the process. They're basically beta testing your applications and your reports without them even knowing it. Just they're getting more functionality. For example, if someone was to deploy the printing functionality for eSize, all of a sudden the director of planning gets eSize kind of access for plots, et cetera. So that's a really amazing thing. I think we do have one question. Paul, can you share the question with the team?
Yes, question from Stephanie here. Any suggestions or tips on incorporating the Esri Business Analyst reports and infographics into your Vertigo Studio map viewer?
I have to know more what that means if you're talking business analysts in terms of demographic data, which is maybe what you're getting at. We're leveraging the geo-enrichment API to be able to do all that. If there's something else specific in business analysts that they're trying to get to, I could be happy to follow up and see if there's some other information that they're looking for. But typically, business analysts, a lot of that is just looking at demographics, and we were able to leverage the geo-enrichment API for that.
Excellent. Yes, Jeff, we'll connect you with Stephanie. I think you guys are in the same kind of world, kind of not municipal or state, which is very unique. Not unique, but I mean, most people are in government, and I think, do you guys know each other? Who you do? Very similar kind of businesses, like.
Excellent. Yeah. So as Peter pointed out, I've retired back in May of this year. Arniv, I've handed most of this over to Arniv. He's been drinking from a fire hose on this, but he's done a great job so far. And he's obviously the main point of contact for all that. But I will just say, plug out, hey, I'm doing consulting now. So if there's anybody who needs any additional help with development or just questions, I'm happy to help out if possible.
Excellent. So I think, Jeff, you know Stephanie maybe, but if not, we'll connect you guys so that you can chat offline.
I'm familiar with the name, so yeah, I'll be happy to reach out and follow up if there's something specific she's looking for.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Excellent presentation. I really I showcase your presentation, your application frequently, so thank you. Thank you very much for your
guys, and a shout out, honestly, to, and I've told this to you a lot, Peter, the support staff there, you guys have heard this, your development team over the years has been absolutely fantastic. I could not have done this on my own. I don't want to present this like, hey, this is Arniv and I's product. This is huge shout out to the support and professional services team. You guys did an awesome job helping.
I'm sure they'll love to hear that. Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeff and Arniv.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.